Hello, everyone. Let me start with a brag. Yeah, I know, not the most humble way to begin, but you'll get why soon. I'm 40 years old, and in the last few months, I've been in bed with not one, not two, but three beautiful women. I mean, who can honestly say they've done that? And I'm not talking about flings or some fantasy scenario. This was real. Each of them, beautiful, sexy, and all part of the plan. Now, before you roll your eyes and think I'm just blowing smoke, let me clear something up. This wasn't about being some stud or having some midlife crisis. It was about revenge. Sweet, calculated revenge. On my wife. Yeah, you read that right. This isn't one of those feel-good stories where I find enlightenment or some kind of deeper understanding of life. No, this is messy, real, and unapologetic. If you're curious about how it went down, well, buckle up. It's a ride, and I'm not holding back. Let me take you back to the start of it all. I'm just an average guy. Nothing flashy, no millionaire lifestyle, or anything like that. I've been married for 11 years, together with her for even longer. We've got 2 kids, a mortgage, a pretty standard life. If you asked me before all this happened, I would have told you our marriage wasn't perfect, but it wasn't broken either. I thought we were solid. You know, like that old pair of shoes you've had for years. They're a bit worn, but still hold together. Turns out I was wrong. Really fucking wrong. The night everything changed started out like any other. I came home from work, tired but looking forward to a quiet evening. She made dinner that night. Something nice, like she was trying to put in some extra effort. She had that look on her face, the one that said she wanted to talk, but I wasn't ready for the bomb she was about to drop. We sat down at the table. Kids were already asleep, and I dug into the meal like any other night. But right as I'm getting comfortable, she starts talking. Not the usual small talk about our day or how work was, but real heavy shit about our marriage. Out of nowhere, she starts going on about how things feel stagnant, like our marriage had lost its spark. Her words were like tiny daggers pricking at me, but I tried to stay calm. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't oblivious. I knew things weren't as exciting as they were when we first got together. But hell, that's normal, right? After a decade together, 2 kids, and full-time jobs, things tend to slow down. But in my mind, that didn't mean it was over. It just meant we needed to put a little more effort in. Marriage is work, but apparently, I was the only one who thought that way. I sat there, listening to her ramble on about how bored she was, how our lives had become so predictable. I was still halfway through my dinner, fork in hand, when she dropped the real bomb. She said she wanted to open our relationship. I froze. The food in my mouth might as well have been made of rubber, because suddenly I couldn't taste a damn thing. I kept my face as neutral as possible, but inside, I was screaming. I expected her to say we should go to counseling, maybe talk about spicing things up, or hell, even a discussion about separation. But this? I didn't see this coming. She continued, oblivious to the rage building up inside me. I don't see it as cheating, she said casually, like she was talking about trying a new diet. Just for a short while. We both need some space, some freedom. Freedom? The nerve. She was sitting across from me, practically giving me a sales pitch about how she could go screw someone else guilt-free. And the way she said it, like it was no big deal, like this was just what normal couples do when they hit a rough patch. She wanted to have her cake and eat it too, to keep the comfort and stability of marriage while getting to fool around without consequence. I didn't say a word. I just kept eating, chewing slowly, nodding here and there like I was considering her proposal. In reality, I was holding back the urge to flip the table and storm out. But something clicked in that moment. As she went on and on about how this could help our marriage, I realized something. It was already dead. Our marriage was a corpse, and she just hadn't admitted it yet. If your wife asks for an open relationship, it's over. She's already checked out emotionally, mentally, hell, probably physically too. What she was really asking for wasn't a break. She had already found someone. I could feel it in the way she was so eager to justify it. Some guy was already in her head, or worse, her bed, and she was trying to make it legit. But instead of blowing up, instead of confronting her right there, I stayed cool. I agreed. Yeah, I fucking agreed to her stupid plan. Why? Because I knew I could play the long game. I knew she thought she'd won, that she'd just secured her hall pass to screw around while I sat at home like some clueless chump. But what she didn't know was that I had my own plans. If she wanted an open relationship, fine. I'd let her think she was in control. But I'd get my revenge in ways she couldn't even imagine. So yeah, I agreed. I smiled, took another bite of my now tasteless dinner, and said, "You know what? Maybe you're right." And that's how it all began. That night, after our little open relationship dinner chat, I couldn't sleep. She was next to me, knocked out, wearing those earplugs and that damn eye mask she swears helps her sleep. I had to laugh a little. Here she was, thinking she was slick, but she had no idea what I was about to do. We never used to hide anything from each other. At least, that's what I thought. We shared everything. Phones, passwords, the whole deal. So, when I slipped my hand under her pillow to grab her phone, I was really hoping she hadn't changed her password. I took a deep breath, tapped in the code, and boom, it unlocked. I felt a strange rush of excitement and anger all at once. How glad I was that she hadn't changed it. She really thought I wouldn't catch on. The first thing I did was check her messages. I was shaking a little, I won't lie. My mind was racing with a mix of rage and dread about what I was going to find. And it didn't take long. Right there in the middle of the chat app was the idiot she was about to cheat with. Some pretty boy with a smug profile picture, probably thinking he'd gotten himself some easy side action with my wife. The messages? Oh, they were very frank. Let's just say if she hadn't physically cheated yet, it was only a matter of time. The way they were talking, the way she was responding, it was clear as day. She was already gone mentally. Honestly, does it even matter if she hasn't done the deed yet? Betrayal is betrayal. And for me, emotional cheating is just as bad as the physical stuff. And judging by the pictures and emojis they were sending, it wasn't going to stay emotional for long. I took screenshots, saved his Instagram profile, and sent everything to myself just in case I needed proof later. By the time I was done, I had enough ammo to blow this whole thing wide open. But I wasn't ready for that yet. I had to play it smart. So what did I do next? I called in reinforcements. I dialed up a couple of my friends. I knew they'd be pissed I was calling in the middle of the night, but this couldn't wait. I needed them on board with what I was planning, and I needed them now. One by one, I woke them up, told them to meet me at the park. No questions, just show up. We all arrived at almost the same time. It was late, probably around 1 or 2 in the morning. So the park was empty, just a few streetlights casting long shadows across the grass. They looked confused at first, maybe a little annoyed, but as soon as they saw the look on my face, they knew something serious was going down. "What the hell, man?" one of them asked, rubbing his eyes. I got straight to the point. I laid it all out for them. The dinner, the open relationship, the messages I'd found. They didn't say much at first, just stood there listening, but I could tell they were as shocked as I had been. When I showed them the screenshots, their disbelief turned into anger. "What are you going to do?" one of them asked, eyes wide. I told them my plan. It wasn't fully fleshed out yet, but I had the basics in mind. I needed to get ahead of this. I needed to make sure that when this all blew up, I'd be the one holding the cards, not her. But I needed their help to pull it off. At first, they thought I was nuts. I could see it in their faces. What I was proposing was risky, maybe even a bit over the top. But after some discussion, and after a few adjustments to the plan, they were on board. We were all in agreement. This had to be handled swiftly and smartly, no half measures. By the time we left the park, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. On one hand, I had my plan. I had my friends backing me up. But on the other hand, I knew there was no turning back now. What I was about to do would change everything. And there was no room for second thoughts. I made it back home, snuck back into bed next to her, and lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling. The fear started creeping in. What if this all went wrong? What if she found out what I was planning before I could pull it off? But then I thought about those messages, about her smug, carefree attitude, and it wiped the fear away. This had to be done. The next morning, as soon as the sun peeked through the blinds, I was wide awake, my mind racing. I couldn't wait any longer. The previous night's revelations still burned fresh in my head, and I wasn't about to sit around playing the clueless husband. I needed to act, and I needed to do it now. Without hesitation, I grabbed my phone and called a divorce lawyer. It didn't matter that it was early. If this guy was as good as his reviews said, he'd understand why I was calling at the crack of dawn. When he picked up, I didn't bother with pleasantries. "I want to file for divorce," I said, my voice steady but sharp. "My wife's cheating on me, and I need to start drawing up the documents as soon as possible." There was a brief silence on the other end. Maybe he was surprised by how direct I was. Maybe he wasn't. Either way, he quickly got down to business, asking for some basic information and explaining the steps we'd need to take. He said something about gathering evidence, but I cut him off. "Don't worry about that," I told him. "I've already got plenty of it." The lawyer scheduled me for a meeting that afternoon to start the paperwork. As I hung up, I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was real now. I wasn't just some guy catching his wife in an emotional affair. I was about to end a marriage. And as much as it hurt, I wasn't going to let her win. Not by a long shot. While I was busy locking down the legal side, the rest of my plan was already in motion. You see, this wasn't just about a divorce. If that was all I wanted, I could have packed my bags and walked away. No, I was in this for revenge. I wasn't going to let her get away with what she was doing so easily. My friends had tracked down the guy, the one my wife was planning to cheat with. It hadn't been hard. The idiot's Instagram was wide open, full of photos of him living some fake, wannabe influencer lifestyle. Expensive watches, flashy cars, pictures with models who probably didn't even know his name. Classic loser trying to look more important than he really was. And guess what? The moment my friends confronted him, the guy folded. I had expected some resistance, maybe a little back and forth, but this guy was nothing but a spineless coward. I didn't even need to be there. He gave up everything without so much as a threat. Apparently, he wasn't as bold in real life as he was behind a screen. "I swear, man, I didn't know she was married," he babbled, probably thinking he could talk his way out of it. My friends didn't even have to raise their voices. They told him exactly what was going on, that he was caught in the middle of something way bigger than he realized. And he practically begged for a way out. I'll give him this. He knew when he was beat. He didn't try to run, didn't get defensive. He realized that messing with a married woman wasn't just going to blow up in his face. It was going to destroy his life if he wasn't careful. So I gave him an option. He could either disappear and never contact her again, or he could become my little informant. I didn't want him beaten up or anything crazy. That wasn't the point. Sure, I was pissed off, but this wasn't just about him. This was about her. If she didn't want to cheat, this guy wouldn't even be in the picture. So, instead of wasting my energy on him, I turned him into a tool. He became useful. From that point on, every little thing he and my wife planned came straight back to me. Their secret rendezvous? I knew about it. Their flirty texts? I had them all saved. My friends kept tabs on him, and he kept me in the loop. I made it clear, if he even thought about warning her, he'd regret it. And just like that, he became my pawn. He fed me information, and in return, he got to keep his face intact and his life relatively unscathed. Then came the day of their big meeting. The day she thought she was being so clever, sneaking off for the weekend. It was a Friday afternoon when she casually mentioned over breakfast that she'd be going to her parents' house for a few days. I could see right through her. That fake, nonchalant tone, like she was just planning a quiet family visit. But I knew exactly where she was going. "I'm going to spend the weekend with my parents," she said, sipping her coffee like it was no big deal. I just smiled, playing the clueless husband she thought I was. "Oh, that's nice," I replied, trying not to choke on my own amusement. "Give them my regards." She smiled back, probably thinking she'd gotten away with it, that she could go off and do whatever she wanted while I stayed home, like some oblivious fool. But inside, I was already setting the next phase of my plan in motion. The moment she left the house, I was ready. It was time to move from defense to offense. The real game was just about to begin. As soon as my wife left, I knew everything was about to unfold exactly how I wanted. The moment the door closed behind her, my heart was pounding, but not out of fear, out of anticipation. I wasn't just playing the victim here. I was in control. I grabbed my phone, texted my friends, and told them it was time. A half hour later, they pulled up outside with the party in tow. Booze, laughter, and three younger girls who were more than willing to liven things up. The energy shifted the moment they walked in, like the air in the house changed, as if this was the turning point. And in a way, it was. We wasted no time. The drinks flowed freely, and the conversations got louder and more playful as the alcohol did its job. We were laughing like idiots, throwing back shots, and toasting to the most ridiculous things. It felt surreal. These girls, all in their 20s, brought a kind of youthful chaos that I hadn't felt in years. They were flirty, carefree, and didn't give a damn about anything except having fun. The more we drank, the more I could feel the weight of everything lifting off me, even if just for a little while. And then, in the middle of it all, I felt that buzzing thrill deep down, because I knew something my wife didn't. Her little boyfriend wasn't showing up. He had blocked her, probably too afraid of what might happen if things got messy. I had orchestrated that part too. He was my puppet, and he didn't even realize it. While she thought she was off to enjoy a secret weekend rendezvous, I knew she'd be turning around sooner than later, pissed off and probably humiliated when he ghosted her. She'd have no choice but to come back home. But until then, I was going to enjoy myself. The girls, now tipsy and laughing hysterically, suggested we move things to the bedroom. The tension in the air had changed, playful and charged. I could feel my own inhibitions slipping away with each shot I took. Why not? This was the revenge she never saw coming. We headed upstairs, one of them tugging on my arm, leading me toward the bedroom, like it was all some kind of wild game. Inside the bedroom, things escalated quickly. The girls were giggling, taking off their tops as if it was the most natural thing in the world, and the next thing I knew, I was joining in piece by piece. It felt surreal. The warm haze of alcohol, the thrill of the moment, the sense of freedom. I'd spent so long being the loyal husband, the dependable guy who worked hard, provided, and was always there, but this was something else. It was like being let loose after years of restraint, and I didn't care about anything but the moment. As we got undressed, the feeling of revenge burned hotter inside me. I was enjoying it, letting go, wrapped up in the reckless abandon of it all. The three of them, younger, energetic, and completely uninhibited, made the whole thing feel like I was in some kind of alternate reality. I won't lie, it was exhilarating. The kind of sex that makes you forget everything else, where nothing else matters but the feeling, the rush, the heat of the moment. And then, just when I thought I was completely lost in it, I heard a sound, her voice, cutting through the haze. "What the hell is going on here?" she screamed. I didn't even hear the front door open. I didn't hear her come up the stairs. But there she was, standing in the doorway, her face contorted in shock, disbelief, and rage. Her eyes scanned the room, taking in the sight of me in bed with three women, half naked, the whole room reeking of booze and bad decisions. I paused for a second, but only long enough to turn my head toward her with the biggest, most sarcastic smile I could muster. "Oh, this?" I said, my voice dripping with mockery. "It's just a free relationship, dear. Like you wanted. By the way, how were your parents?" Her face turned from red to pale in a matter of seconds. I could see the realization hit her like a truck. She knew. She knew that I had planned all of this. And the fact that I had turned the tables on her like this, it destroyed her. I could see it in her eyes. She lost it. In a furious frenzy, she lunged toward the bed, ripping the girls off of me one by one, her hands shaking with anger as she threw their clothes at them and screamed for them to get out. The girls, giggling and stumbling from the alcohol, didn't even put up a fight. They gathered their things as quickly as they could and left, half-dressed, their laughter echoing down the stairs and out the door. To them, it was just some wild night that had gone a little sideways. When the girls were gone, she collapsed onto the edge of the bed, her hands covering her face as the sobs began. And not the quiet, soft kind of crying. The full-on, ugly, heaving sobs that shake your whole body. She couldn't control it. She didn't know what to do, and honestly, I didn't care. I calmly got dressed while she sat there, breaking down beside me. I didn't rush. I took my time, putting on my clothes, buttoning my shirt, adjusting my belt. Once I was done, I sat down next to her on the bed. I didn't feel sorry for her, not anymore. This was her doing her choice. She had pushed us here, and now she was paying the price. "How was your date?" I asked, my tone almost casual. She looked up at me, her eyes red and puffy, the tears still streaming down her cheeks. That's when it hit her. She knew I had done this. She knew I had set her up, that I had planned the whole thing. She didn't have to say it. The look in her eyes said it all. She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. "Don't bother," I said, my voice calm but firm. "A lawyer's going to call you tomorrow. We're done. I'm filing for divorce." I stood up, looking down at her one last time. There's no point in fighting or yelling. It won't change anything. What's done is done. And just like that, I walked out of the room, leaving her there to cry. No more arguments, no more drama. I was done with it all. She made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. The next day, after everything that had happened, I knew I needed to clear my head and talk it out with my friends. We'd been through a lot together over the years, but this was a new level of crazy. I texted them in the morning, and they all agreed to meet at our usual spot, the local bar where we'd spent countless nights shooting the breeze and sharing stories. But today, the story was all mine. When I walked into the bar, they were already there, seated around our usual table, beers in hand, and grinning like they knew exactly what was coming. As soon as I sat down, one of them leaned forward and said, "All right, man, we've been dying to hear how it went down. Don't leave out a single detail." I didn't need much encouragement. I started from the beginning, telling them everything from the moment my wife left the house, thinking she was going off to her affair, to the moment I knew her lover had blocked her, leaving her to come home to an unexpected surprise. My friends were glued to every word, laughing and shaking their heads in disbelief as I recounted the scene in the bedroom, the booze, the girls, and of course, the grand finale, my wife walking in on me in the middle of the act. Wait. One of my buddies interrupted, barely able to contain his laughter. She just walks in, and you're like, "Oh, hey, it's a free relationship? Man, that's gold." I couldn't help but laugh too. "Yeah, pretty much." She froze at first, didn't know what to do, and then went absolutely ballistic. I swear, the look on her face was priceless. She started screaming and throwing the girls out of the house, like she hadn't just suggested an open relationship a few days before. Another friend, shaking his head in disbelief, took a swig of his beer. "Damn, dude, you pulled that off perfectly. I'd have paid good money to see that." The laughter around the table grew louder as I continued with the story, explaining how, after she kicked the girls out, she sat on the bed crying, completely broken, and how I, calmly and without any drama, told her that a lawyer would be calling her the next day about the divorce. One of the guys, who was quieter than the rest, leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You know, I've got to say, I envy you a little. 3 girls at once? And she had to walk in and see it? That's the ultimate revenge." I just shook my head, still grinning. Yeah, it was definitely something. But honestly, I wasn't even doing it for that. It wasn't just about screwing around or even getting revenge, really. It was about showing her that she didn't get to pull the strings anymore, that she wasn't the one in control. There was a pause at the table as they nodded, absorbing the weight of what I was saying. Revenge had been part of it, sure, but it was also about reclaiming my own dignity after she had shredded it with her lies and betrayal. I raised my glass, making eye contact with each of them. "I gotta thank you guys. Seriously, you had my back through this whole thing. Without you, I don't know how I'd have handled it. Everyone deserves friends like you." They clinked their glasses with mine, and for a moment, there was a sense of quiet solidarity. These guys had been with me through thick and thin, and I wouldn't have made it through this mess without them. We finished our beers, and I started talking about the divorce process. The crazy part? The divorce wasn't even that dramatic. After everything that went down, I think my ex just realized there was no fight left. It was like she knew she'd lost, and there was no point dragging it out. One of them raised an eyebrow. No screaming matches or last-minute drama. I shook my head. Nope. It was shockingly calm. We divided the property pretty evenly. I wasn't out to take everything from her. What would be the point? It wasn't worth the hassle. The house, the cars, all of it got split without much argument. I think she was just too tired to fight anymore. And honestly, I didn't have the energy for it either. They all nodded. They got it. We'd all seen or heard of divorces that dragged on for years, with both sides trying to destroy each other. But in my case, it was like we both knew the game was over. There was no use in pretending anymore. She signed the papers, and that was that. So what now? One of my friends asked, leaning forward. You got your freedom back. What are you going to do with it? I smiled, but there was a hint of tiredness behind it. I don't know, man. I'm just focusing on moving forward. I've spent enough time looking back, trying to figure out where things went wrong. I think it's time to just let it all go and start fresh. We spent the rest of the night drinking, laughing, and sharing stories, but the weight of what had happened lingered. By the time I left the bar, I felt lighter than I had in years. There was a sense of closure, of having finally put an end to a chapter of my life that had been dragging on for far too long. And now, to anyone reading this, I want to thank you for sticking around to hear my story. It's not an easy thing to go through, but I'm here to tell you that you can come out the other side, no matter how messy things get. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that you have to pay attention. Don't get so comfortable that you stop seeing the signs. Look at your spouse. Really look. Don't let things fall apart without noticing. And if they do, don't be afraid to take control of the situation. Trust me, you don't want to end up like I did, finding out the hard way. Update. It's been a little over a year since everything went down, and I figured it's about time to give you all an update on where my life's at now. Looking back, I can hardly believe how much has changed. It's strange. When you're in the middle of the chaos, it feels like life is falling apart. But now it feels like things are finally coming together in ways I never expected. First off, the divorce done, over and in the past. It was the best decision I could have made, and I don't regret a single moment of it. The whole process was surprisingly smooth, given how ugly things could have gotten. I've heard stories about divorces that drag on for years, with constant court battles and fighting over every little thing. But in my case, after that final confrontation, my ex seemed too tired to put up much of a fight. Maybe she realized there was no point anymore, or maybe she just wanted out as much as I did. Either way, we split the house, the cars, the money, and that was it. Clean break. I got what I needed, and she got what she deserved. Now let's talk about what really matters. Life after the storm. It's been a whirlwind, but in the best way possible. After the divorce, I made a conscious decision to focus on myself for the first time in years. I'm not just talking about the usual go to the gym, get in shape stuff. Though yeah, I did that too. It's amazing what a little freedom and motivation could do for your fitness. I lost some weight, put on some muscle, and honestly, I'm in the best shape I've been in since my 20s. But the physical stuff? That's just the surface. The real change happened on the inside. For the first time in a long time, I started thinking about what I wanted out of life. What kind of future did I want to build for myself? Now that I wasn't tied down by a toxic relationship, it wasn't an easy question to answer at first. I had to sit with myself and figure out what I really cared about, what I was passionate about. One of the biggest surprises? My career. I threw myself into work, not just as a distraction, but as a way to reinvent myself. The funny thing is, as soon as I stopped holding myself back and started taking risks, doors began to open. I had an idea for a side business, something I've been thinking about for a while, but never had the guts to pursue. I won't get into too many details, but let's just say it's a tech-related venture, something I've been passionate about for years, but always put on the back burner because of, well, life. After the divorce, I took the leap and started putting serious time and energy into making it happen. It wasn't easy at first, There were a lot of late nights, self-doubt, and wondering if I was just wasting my time. But slowly, things started to come together. I built a small team, got some investors on board, and before I knew it, the business was taking off. A year later, we're not just surviving, we're thriving. I'm not saying I'm a millionaire or anything, but the success I've had with this has given me a sense of pride and purpose I haven't felt in years. I even made a few headlines in local business news. Nothing huge, but it felt good to get some recognition for all the hard work. And the best part? I'm doing this on my own terms. No one to answer to but myself. That's a feeling I never thought I'd experience after being stuck in such a suffocating marriage for so long. On the personal side, life has been good. Better than good, actually. I've reconnected with old friends, made some new ones, and most importantly, I've learned how to enjoy my own company again. For a while after the divorce, I stayed single on purpose. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I needed time to heal, to get my head straight, and to figure out who I was without being someone's husband. But eventually, someone came along, as these things tend to happen. We met through mutual friends, nothing planned or expected, and we clicked. She's amazing, smart, funny, independent. The best part? She's not looking for anything from me except honesty and a good time. No drama, no baggage. It's refreshing, to say the least. I'm taking things slow this time around, though. I'm not in a rush to jump into anything serious, but for the first time in a long time, I feel optimistic about where things could go. As for my ex-wife, well, from what I've heard through the grapevine, things haven't exactly gone well for her. She's been through a few relationships since our divorce, none of which seem to have stuck. I don't wish her ill. Well, not anymore at least. I'm past that now. If anything, I just hope she figures out whatever it is she's looking for, though I suspect she never will. People like her rarely do. Looking back, it's wild to think about how much my life has changed in just over a year. If you told me a year ago that I'd be where I am now, running a successful business, in great shape, and dating someone new, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But here I am. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. To anyone reading this, especially if you're going through something similar, just know that it gets better. It doesn't seem like it at first, but trust me, it does. You just have to hang in there, take control of your life, and not be afraid to make the tough decisions when the time comes. So yeah, I guess you could say life's pretty damn good right now. And I plan to keep it that way.